This is Irontrader, and this is Midday Trading. So I'm going to take a look at some stocks here. Applied Materials, AMAT. Their earnings are out today after the close. We'll take a look here at Amazon, which is moving up here nicely today. And we'll take a look at Netflix, which is moving up. And then we'll look at Race, which is Ferrari. And then we'll take a look here at Microsoft. Okay, this video is for information purposes only, not a recommendation to buy, selling stock, not ETF. Please like, subscribe. Thanks for watching. All right, here we have AMAT. Earnings are today after the close, your daily and weekly chart. Now, before we get started, the PPI number came out, and wow, that is rocketing in as far as inflation. Now, remember, that's the producer price index here, and that is not going to be good. That's going to be going down the road. Now, if you've been watching my videos, when I talked about the CPI, which came out on Tuesday, I said, yeah, when you look at the headline numbers, yeah, they look good, but when you dig into it, there's a lot of stuff that is rising in price. You're talking about hotel rooms, and you're looking at any kind of a housing situation and beef prices, and you're looking at used car prices. A lot of stuff is already rising. Now, when you put tariffs on, nothing is instant. It's always down the road. But this PPI number, wow, that came in very, very strong. And matter of fact, it's the highest now it's been in 3 years. So this is not good, because when the Fed comes in September, everybody's looking for, they're going to be cutting or maybe 3 or 4 cuts this year. I don't think they're going to cut. When you get a number like this, you got inflation coming in. There's no reason to cut rates. If anything, you want to be raising rates here. So again, I just say, just watch this time period from that 6 week from that mid-August there to mid-October. That's going to be a very, very tricky situation. So just watch that time period and use stops on your trades and put money in your pocket. That's the key. Okay, let's look here at old AMAT. Now, what we're looking at on the downside is you really want to hold that 186.28 level, and then we want to watch that 184.67, your 8-day, and then we have that nice 50-day. Now, there is a gap that I want you to, that's why I wanted to point out to you. It's 181.86, and then we have that fill, okay, at that 179.24, and then we have your retest 174.51, then we have your 200-day, then we have your 100-day sitting here at 167. Now, the reason I always point out these gaps, okay, is because a lot of times what it does, it'll come down, and if it loses that 8 and that 50-day, let me big this up a little bit for you, okay? If you lose that 8-day and that 50-day, then you'll come right down to the gap. Now, if that gap holds, okay, then that's going to be your support level. But if it starts working itself in, it'll be like a magnet to a fridge. It's going to want to fill that gap at 179. Okay, so always remember that. Then we have that bottom there at 177. Then we come down to 174. Then you have 170, and then we can come down to your 100-day. Now, on the upside, what we're watching is we're going to be watching the top of that candle. You're looking at 191.14, and then we're going to be looking at the top of this candle. You're looking at 192.45. Then we can work yourself up there, this 194 level. Then we have another gap on the upside. Okay, so you want to watch the top of that candle, 195.16, and then the bottom of that candle, 198.50. So if it comes, say it rallies right on up here and it gets into that 194, 195.16 level, and it starts working itself up, then it's going to go and fill that gap at that 198.50, and then we have that retest at 201.11. Now, when we look at the RSI, you're only sitting at 55. You got plenty of room to run. Your green is crossed over your red, and this is actually here we had this nice double bottom situation. So we got to see what the earnings have been. Earnings can be very, very tricky. A lot of times, even if the earnings is good, it all depends. Remember, it's never the news; it's the reaction to it. Now, when we look on a weekly chart, okay, this is actually looking very, very good. We got to an oversold condition. Rally ran up. Got plenty of room to run. The green is over red, shows good momentum. Now, on the downside, on a weekly basis, you really want to hold that 187 level. Then you want to hold that 179. And then we have right below that 173. And then we have your 21-day at 166 level. And then you can come all the way down to 149. That'll your support levels. Now, the upside, you really want to break out above that 201. Okay, see how we had that 201 level? Now, if you can, look how nice see, this is why I use the price channels. Rallied right on up here. And then your next target, you got a 215 level. Okay, and then we can come right up to the top of this candle. You're looking at 249, and we have a retest there of 255. But let's just see how this all shakes out here. Now, again, we have a really nice, good V-shape, almost like an inverse head and shoulders, left shoulders, head, right shoulder situation. If you can crack above that 201 level, there should be no problem testing that 215 level and rally right on up very, very nicely. So always just Remember, always look to the left of the chart because where it's been is usually where it's going. Now you can see where we had a high, lower high, lower high. We had that downtrending. Then it reversed itself and got right back up here again. But you notice that that high was 201.11, and then we look at the top of that candle, you had 255. See how that is? See, and we had almost like a double top situation. Came down. Now she's trying to retest that. But again, if we can have good numbers, 201, you crack that, we can go take that bad boy higher. Okay, let's take a look here now at Amazon. Here we have Amazon, daily and weekly. Now, she's getting a little bit of love today. Now, you can see what we had. Yesterday ran up and went right into that 21-day. Now, we had a gap and go now, which I don't like because the simple reason is now we left that gap. All right, so what we're looking for, the high of that got as high as today is 230.49. What we're going to be watching is the bottom of that candle at 231.40. That would be the gap fill. But now here on the downside, you have to watch this 227. There's your gap. And then we want to watch the top of that candle at 224, 24.92. Then we have that 225.29 rate sitting right there. But again, the gap and the fill. Then we have, we have that 200 that 21-day. And if we lose that, then we have that 8-day at 222 level. And then we have that 220 level. That is going to be a 50-day. And you can work yourself all the way down to this 200-day at 211. But right now, this is looking very, very good. So on the upside, yeah, obviously you want to watch today's high, 230.49. And then we want to watch the bottom of that candle. That's a gap fill. That's at 231.40. Then we come to the top there at 236, and then obviously your breakout is 236.53 level, okay? So that would be breakout here on your daily chart. Now, you can see here, once you break out at 236.53 level, you have this 242.52, and that's going to be the big retest, and then you have to see if it gets there, what the reaction is once it does get there. But I just never care for these gaps in this fill. So bottom line, just watch today's low and then the top of yesterday's high. There's your gap in your fill in the 21-day. Okay, if that's lost, we have the 8-day and the 50-day. But again, let's just see how this all shakes out. Through the day. But you have a nice, good trade here in the Amazon. I think Amazon's going to be, one of these going forward. Now, remember, you got football season coming, and they have the Thursday night football. There's a lot going on here with the Amazon as far as the sports and the whole package and the AI, the whole thing. Now, when we look at the RSI, you have 57, plenty of room to run. The green is below your red, but looks like it wants to curl up, and maybe we can take it up and shoot up to that 236 level. And then we have to see what the reaction is once you get there. Does it crack up and head for that 242, or does it hit it and then come right on down? Now, on a weekly basis, we want it to hold that 224 level. That is your 8-day. If not, we're going to come right down to this 206 level, which is basically your 21-day and your 50-day. But remember, we have a gap all the way down here. So you want to watch that 206.62 if it does sell. And then we have the fill at 194.69. Okay, so you have the at 206.62. I mean, not 206.62. I'm sorry about that. 197.85. That is your gap. And then we want to look at that 194.69. So your gap and your fill, and then we have your 100 SMA. But right now, this looks very, very good. You got plenty of room to run on the RSI. The green is over your red, looking very, very good. But I just never care for this gap because it could be, remember, one day does not make a market. This could rally up today and then say, okay, we're going to come down and fill that gap. Now, what we had here is pretty much like a bull flag situation. We had the pole, and then we had that descending situation like a flag, and then she just popped right on up. But let's just see how this all going to shake out here today. Okay, let's take a look here now at Netflix. Here we have Netflix daily and the weekly. Now, you can see this had a huge, huge run, okay, all the way from the bottom at that 821 all the way to 1341. Just a huge, huge run. Then we had a nice sell-off situation. There was no divergence. We just had like an overbought condition. Then people took profits. They were just kind of getting into something else. And now it looks like you're back into it. So to me, it looks like Netflix is when the market starts to sell off, it looks like people are putting their money into Netflix, and Netflix goes higher. Now, what we're really watching on the closing basis is going to be this 50-day. We're just a smidge above it. That's that 1230 level, okay? So that's what you really want to do is we have to close back above that 1230. Then we can head to today's high, looking at 1242 level. Then we come on top of this candle. You're looking at 1246. And then we can work yourself up here to this retest at 1277 level. And obviously, we just bring this bad boy right across. You're looking at 1302, and we can work yourself all the way up to 1341. But the key level is closing above that 1230. Now, say it doesn't and it sells off. Well, then we want to watch that 8-day at that 1200, and then we want to watch that 21-day at 1133, and then we come down here to your 100-day at that 1149. But right now, look at this 8-day. See how it crossed that 21-day? That's very, very bullish. So any kind of a pullback, that's going to be very, very good support in the old on the Netflix trade. So just remember that. Now, we didn't get to an oversold condition, but we got down pretty low, and now she's rallying up. Now we have plenty of room to run, like we had on the, like in the previous. Also, what we have is we have a nice bullish cross, gives us momentum to the upside, which obviously we have. All right. So basically, just watch that key 50-day on a closing basis. If we can hold that, then there's your first target. It's going to be that 1277. Okay. Now we look at here on a weekly chart. Now you can see where it went right on in. This is going to be very, very key at 1232 on a closing basis by Friday, which is to be tomorrow. Now you can see where it sold off, and where did it go? Right into the 21-day. See, so this is why you trade the charts. Now look what a nice trading chart this is. Bottom left, upper right. It held the 8-day, came on down. It held the 21-day, came right on down. It held that 50-day, and now look how nice this 21-day is holding here again. Look at that. Just she's a beaut, Clark. But you have to get above that 1232 level before we can start retesting that 1341. So by Friday, we got to see how that all shakes out. Now, you can see here we had this kind of like a negative divergence going on. So we have a high and we have a lower high, where we have a high and a higher high kind of a situation. And then we had that sell-off. But right here, that was your target. And as long as that holds, that was your buying opportunity to take it higher. Now, again, that doesn't mean you can't get in. If we close above this 50-day, that'd be a good buying opportunity to get in and to take it to that 1277 level. Okay, let's take a look here now at Ferrari. All right, here we have Ferrari. Now, this is one of my favorite trades, race. All right, there's two auto stocks that I like. It's race and it's Tesla. Tesla, you can trade on really nice both ways. You go TSLA for the long, TSLS for the short. I tried that many times, but race is always one of my favorites because these high-enders don't really care what the price is. They don't care about inflation. They don't care about anything. They want that Ferrari. Okay, so that's just really how it works. Now, you can see here how we had this earnings situation. Came in here and boom, down goes Fraser. She dropped right on down. However, see, we have that big, huge gap. Now, what we're watching on the upside is when we're watching this 100-day at 467. We get above that, then we're going to be looking for the 21-day here at that 475 level. All right. Now, we also have a couple of gaps. So we want to look at this one first, 477.72. That's going to be resistance. And then we look to the bottom of that candle at 481.46. Your gap and then your fill. Once we get above all that, we have another gap fill right here at that 496.66 level. Okay. So we came all the way down. But now we're starting to rally back into it. So we got to see if we can get above that 100-day, 21-day, and 50-day. Then we can head right for that gap fill at that 496 level. Then we can go to the top of that at 505 and work yourself all the way up here, 509. And then we have 515 and then your big retest at 519. Now, on the downside, we're watching that 200-day. Really want to close that 458. Now, I don't like this gap up situation, but if we lose that 200 SMA at that 458, then you want to watch today's low. Okay, so that's 454.41. There's your gap. And then we want to look to the top of that candle at 452. Okay, so 454, 452. And then we have your 8-day sitting at 447. And then we just come to the bottom of that candle at 440. And we have 437. And then we have 435. And then we have your retest down there at 428. Now, you can see where it got to an over a sold condition, and now she's trying to rally up. Your MACD is starting to curl up, and if we can get it back above it, we can take a right to that gap fill. However, just watch that 100-day. That's going to be very, very key. The 21-day and the 50-day. We have to get through all of that before we have that gap fill. But always look at this gap fill right there because that is not filled yet, and then we want to look at that gap fill on the bottom. Now, we look at a weekly chart. You can see here how nicely this chart is, okay? Look at this, bottom left, upper right kind of a situation. Very, very nice looking chart. All right, so came all the way down, held that 100-day nicely. Came all the way down, then we made to the 100-day, holding it nicely, and now we're rallying up. So what we want to do is get back above that 50-day. We want to get back above this 21 SMA, and then we want to get back above that 8 SMA. So you have a lot of resistance. Matches up pretty much like on your daily chart. But once you can, then we can hit these big targets up here, okay? 498, Okay, and then we have 507, and then we have your 519 level. But again, this is what I always want to say, one of my favorite trades. Just something about it that, it seems like it does work. All right, let's take a look here now at Microsoft. Here we have Microsoft daily and weekly. Nice. Now, you can see we had this gap and go situation, and it just held that 8-day all the way up. When it lost the 8-day, where it come? Right down to the 21-day. Now look at it. We're still holding that 21-day. Nice. Very, very nice. All right, so what we have here, you want to look at that. If you lose that 21-day, you want to look at the bottom of that candle. That's at 517.55 level. Okay, and that's your gap. And then we want to look at the top of this candle at 515.95. So we have your gap and then your fill if we lose that 21-day. Then we want to come down to the bottom of this candle, which is basically that 500 mark, which lines up very, very nice with your 50 SMA. But right now, this is looking very, very bullish. Spiked right on up, and then she just going sideways kind of an action. But look at that, how nice that's holding. Now, if this stock and all these stocks get hammered, okay, you have the 100-day, we have the 200-day, all the way down in the fours. But look at this. So you want to watch this. Just keep this on your back burner if you're trading this. 424.90, there's your gap, and then 396.66, there's your fill. Gap, and then we have a fill if we start losing all these simple moving average. But right now, the stock is looking very, very bullish. You can see the strength that was going on. There was no divergences. It was just solid, very, very strength. And look at that run up, just taking right on up on the old AI trade. Okay. Now, this is old technology, but now they also have the new technology. So that is working kind of a situation. If we're like where you have Cisco, they came out with their numbers, they were nothing really to write home about compared to, say, like a Microsoft. Now, here we look at the weekly. Look at how nice this is, just rallying right on up. And we're holding that key 8-day at 511 this whole way. Very, very nice. So this is going to be very key on a closing basis by every Friday. Okay? This Friday, next Friday, every day. If you start losing it, well, then we're just heading down to your 21-day, your 50-day, and we have your 100-day all the way on down. But now you're getting to an overbought condition, so we got to see how that all shakes out. The green is over red, but this is like the whole market. The whole market is, they're saying that it's not enough froth, but I can tell you right now, the market is very, very frothy. It's a trader's market. Okay, so any little thing, okay, like we had that PPI number, and boom, down she goes. And then it was a good buying opportunity to take a scalp. But again, that's what it was. Now, NVIDIA was a really good scalp there for me today. That was really a good trade. Meta actually was a really good trade today. And so there, and same way with Amazon. There are a lot of good trades that going on, even though we're at this frothy level. But it isn't going to take much where you can see where that PPI number came out and that market just dropped. Now, again, if the Fed does not cut rates, everybody's expecting this cut. I'm not. I'm expecting them to hold. I'm not expecting any cut at all. Maybe a quarter point, but I don't think they're going to do that. When they see that PPI number, they got to have time to digest all that information. That's the key. But even when I looked at that CPI and you actually read the data, all right, it's not what headline is. There's a lot of inflation in that CPI and PPI report. So always, always remember that. Remember, you stop money in your pocket. Okay, that's what I got for you. I'll be back here after your pit close. We'll take a look at Bitcoin, crude oil, natural gas, gold, silver, and then we'll take a look at the indexes, which are now red. All right, trade what's in front of you. Now what you want.